you so much for joining us, dear friends. We're continuing our study in the book of Jeremiah. We're up to chapter 46. We're up to chapter 46. Next week may be a little bit complicated. I have to go to England and I'm going by ship again. Ironically, sailing by ship is actually cheaper than flying by plane because jet fuel prices have gone so high. It's actually cheaper to sail for seven days than it is to fly for 7 hours. But I'll be leaving New York for Southampton this week, and from there I'll be going on to Israel. Beryl is already in Israel. We have a lot to do in Israel in terms of ministry and so forth. So your prayers are indeed appreciated. Nonetheless, I am still in Tennessee. I just got back from Canada. We had a wonderful conference in Canada. We really did. The Lord blessed it. It was quite an event. I'd seen people that I'd not seen since before COVID. It was my first time in Canada since COVID. And I was surprised so many people came that I knew, as well as the newer people who I not as yet met. And then there were other people who came even from other provinces of Canada, and we had mutual acquaintances. It was a very, very good and blessed trip and a good conference. And I'm looking forward to my visit to Britain. I will be speaking in Surrey, England, among other places. Announcements will be made. And then, of course, I've got to go to Israel, and we'll see beyond that. In the meantime, we're up to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46. May the Lord bless this reading and study of his word. Verse 1. That which came as the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the nations. Notice the nations. And what he does here is he gives a summary of the political and national fate of all the nations in terms of their relationship to Israel and the Jews. Now, there are three aspects of this. It begins here with Egypt, but then it moves on and it addresses Philistia, which is today called the Gaza Strip, the prophecies for Philistia, the prophecies for Moab. In chapter 48, the prophecies for Ammon, which is, of course, central in northern Jordan, then Edom, which is southern Jordan, northern Arabia, prophecy against Kedar and Hazor. Now, these Kedar extends into the Arabian Peninsula, into waters today called Saudi Arabia. Elam is a portion of what is today Iran, not the non-Persian section of Iran, some of it extending into southern Iraq. And ultimately, finally, in chapters 50 and 51, the prophecies against Babylon, the prophecies against Babylon. It begins with Egypt and then ends with Babylon, and the other nations are in the middle, sort of like in an envelope, in the middle. The first aspect of this is what was prophetically transpiring in Jeremiah's own time in the period of the Babylonian captivity, in the early years of the Babylonian captivity. That is the first. The second, it is a general truth in the way that God judges nations. And God will judge nations in regard to two things. One, whether they accept or reject the gospel, and if they persecute the true church. Secondly, he will judge them in relationship to Israel and the Jews, blessing those who bless and cursing those who curse. So we have the prophecy for Jeremiah's own time. Then we have it as a general truth that is dynamic throughout history. And finally, these same nations will come into the judgment of God at the close of the age. At the close of the age. But the same things are going to apply to them. One of which is, do they receive or reject the gospel? And do they persecute Christians? Particularly saved Christians, obviously. And secondly, their relationship to Israel and the Jews. Will they be benevolent towards Israel and the Jews, or will they be in enmity with Israel and the Jews? So there's a future prophetic meaning, there's an ongoing historical meaning, and there's the meaning for the prophet's own time. We have to begin by understanding, of course, what it meant for the prophet's own time, things like the author's intent. Before we can understand it as an ongoing historical dynamic, and before we can understand what it foreshadows prophetically in an eschatological sense, for want of a better term, then we need to begin at the beginning. So it puts Egypt first. Egypt is the quintessential biblical metaphor in both testaments for the world. For the world, you know that. Pharaoh, the god of the world, also a type of Antichrist. It begins with Egypt. Remember, at the onset of the captivity, there were Hebrews, Israelites, who were taking refuge in Egypt against the instruction of God. They resorted to the world, as it were. They resorted to the safety of Pharaoh, as Isaiah warned about and against, and Isaiah chapters 30 and 31, which we've looked at. They went to Egypt. God's judgment will begin with the world, but it will begin where those who are in rebellion against him go to, trust in. Whatever those who turn away from the way of the Lord turn to instead of the Lord, whatever they trust in instead of in him and his instruction, that is where the judgment is going to begin. They will go there, they will trust it, they will believe it, thinking it's going to give them a sense of safety or security. But it will ultimately turn against them. It will ultimately turn against them. And that's where the judgment begins. It begins with Egypt. That which came is the word of the Lord. Remember, Jesus is the word, ho logos, in the Septuagint, the Davar Adonai. And it comes to Jeremiah concerning not the nation Egypt, but all the nations. The nations, it's plural, goyim. And it's interesting, it's political nations here. We must always distinguish between the terms goyim, nations in the ethnic sense, and amim, which are peoples who inhabit a given land or region. Amim, goyim. The distinction should be noted. To Egypt concerning the army of Pharaoh, Necho, king of Egypt, which was by the Euphrates River at Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, defeated in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. The Pharaoh had a powerful army. The conflict had been between Assyria, that is the Assyrian Empire, and their capital Nineveh, and Egypt. When it was in the days of Nahum, the prophet, the conflict was between Assyria and Egypt in the book of Nahum. This had to do with the Assyrian captivity of the 10 northern tribes. Now the same thing is replayed with the Babylonian captivity. Only instead of the conflict being between Egypt and Assyria, represented by their capitals, by Thebes versus Nineveh. Now the conflict becomes between Egypt and Babylon. Egypt and Babylon. What happened with the Assyrian captivity is replayed. Exactly what happened to the 10 northern tribes would now come down to the tribes of Judah, but the tribes of the Benjamites and the tribe of Judah and the refugees from the north. Let's look. Line up the shield and buckler. Draw near for the battle. Harness the horses and mount the steeds. Take your stand with helmets on. Polish the spears. Put on the scale armor. What have I seen? Why have I seen it? They are terrified. They're drawing back, and their mighty men are defeated. They have taken refuge in flight without facing back. Terror on every side, declares the Lord. Let not the swift man flee, nor the mighty man escape. In the north, next to the river Euphrates, they've stumbled and fallen. Woe is this that rises like the Nile, like the rivers whose water surge about. Egypt rises like the Nile, even the rivers whose waters surge about. And he has said, I will rise and cover that land. I will surely destroy the city and its inhabitants. Now understand something. The primary river of Babylon was the Euphrates. The primary river of Egypt is the Nile. It is contrasting the two rival empires by their rivers. By their rivers. In the Middle East, you can't survive without a water source. You can't survive without a water source anyway. But when you have massive deserts, you are reliant upon large sources of water. The only one in Egypt is the Nile and then the Nile Delta. The only one in the east of Persia, that would be, and the area of Babylon and Iraq, that would be the Euphrates and, of course, the Tigris, Mesopotamia, and the Fertile Crescent. So the rivers are juxtaposed to each other. And it's interesting in the book of Revelation, you know, you've got the same idea, the Nile and the Euphrates. These two rivers are the main rivers in contrast to each other. The overflowing of the rivers in the rainy season is used to illustrate what is going to take place in the way those nations are going to be drowned in their troubles, of being drowned in their troubles. It'll overflow and drown them in their troubles. Sometimes there is drought as a form of God's judgment. But the other form of God's judgment is torrential flooding. Torrential flooding. Both will destroy agricultural produce. Both will result in depopulation and mass death. Both. With this in view, let's continue. Don't try to flee. Don't think you can escape. Don't think you have the strength. Who is this that rises like the Nile, like the rivers whose waters surge about? Egypt rises like the Nile, even like the rivers whose waters surge about. And he said, I will rise and cover that land. I will surely destroy the city and its inhabitants. Now, the cities of Egypt would be the cities around Ramses, named after the pharaoh, and of course, Thebes, today called Luxor. You've got Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt is, of course, Southern Egypt, because the Nile flows from the south to the north into the Mediterranean. I will surely destroy the city and its inhabitants. Go up, you horses, drive madly, you chariots, that the mighty men may march forward. Ethiopia and Put, that handle the shield, and the Lydians that handle the bent bow. We speak here of the Horn of Africa, countries today called Somaliland, Somalia, Ethiopia, and Eritrea, and Sudan, that area. These are the Cushites. The land of Put is the land to the immediate west of Egypt. Today it is called Libya. Notice these same nations are so much in the center of world events today. For that day belongs to the Lord God of hosts, a day of vengeance, so as to avenge himself on his foes. And the sword will devour and be satiated, and drink its fill of their blood. And there will be a slaughter for the Lord God of hosts in the land of the north by the river of the Euphrates. Go up to Gilead and obtain balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. In vain you've multiplied remedies. There is no healing for you. Let's look at these verses. Once more, what happens here is replayed at the close of the age. At the close of the age, culminating with the return of Christ. This is a foreshadow of what will happen before Jesus comes. The day of vengeance. The Lord is going to avenge himself on the Islamic nations. He's going to avenge himself on that area of the world. It's going to be something absolutely horrific. Now, remember when Jesus came to the synagogue in Nazareth? He was reading from Isaiah 62, and he cut the verse in half. He did not read the day of vengeance of our God. It was only the year of Jubilee, the appointed time. The day of vengeance, the year of vengeance, would come with his second coming. This here begins to speak of the second coming of Christ. In other words, what was happening in Jeremiah's day is the foreshadow of what is going to happen in the day of his vengeance. A day of vengeance to avenge himself on his foes. When you see that language, it is always in some way pointing to, alluding to, prefiguring the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord. And much of God's vengeance on the day of the Lord will center around the Middle East and in the Horn of Africa. For there will be a slaughter for the Lord of hosts in that land of the north by the river Euphrates. Iraq. Go up to Gilead, obtain balm, O virgin daughter of Egypt. Balm has to do with healing. But we are told, and it's the title of a book I wrote, there's no balm in Gilead. There's no balm in Gilead. A time will come when there will be no healing. There will be no cure for what is happening to the nations. No healing, no cure. No prospect other than judgment. There'll be no balm in Gilead. There'll be no way to save themselves. When the world enters this period of dilemma, the Antichrist will in part deceive people into thinking he can be the savior figure, coming as a counterfeit of the return of Christ. He likewise comes on a white horse, the way Jesus does in Revelation 19. The Antichrist will imitate him in Revelation 6. He will come, he will deceive Israel, but he will deceive the nations. They will somehow look to him as someone who can save them. The only one who can save them is Jesus, and he's not going to save anybody. He came to save in his first coming. In his second coming, he brings the vengeance of God. The vengeance of God. Those who survive in Israel, who see him and accept him as Messiah, will be saved. The remnant of the Gentile nations who repent and believe in Jesus will be saved. Individuals may be saved. Mankind, the nations, will not be saved. None of them. Go up to Gilead and obtain balm. Go ahead, try to heal yourself. You can have your conferences, your United Nothing, your World Council of Churches. You can have your World Health Organization, World Health Organization. You can have whatever you want. But there's no balm in Gilead. Nothing they do is going to work. It didn't work in the days of Jeremiah, and it's not going to work at the close of the age and the day of his vengeance. There's no healing. The nations have heard of your shame, and the earth is full of your cry of distress. For one warrior has stumbled over another. Both of them have fallen down together. One warrior stumbled at another over another. They're tripping over each other. In other words, they will be incapable of any kind of coordinated military response. Even force of arms warfare will not work. There'll be no coordinated strategic response. This is the message which the Lord spoke to Jeremiah the prophet about the coming of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to smite the land of Egypt. Antichrist will come. Babylon the Great will be his footstool. Initially, he will be unstoppable. He will be totally unstoppable until the Lord himself destroys him with the breath of his coming. He'll be unstoppable. Nobody could come against Babylon. Nobody will come against Babylon the Great. Declare in Egypt, proclaim in Migdal, proclaim also in Memphis and Tahpanhes. These are the cities of Egypt. Say, take your stand and get yourself ready, for the sword has devoured those around you. Why have your mighty ones become prostrate? They do not stand because the Lord has thrust them down. They have repeatedly stumbled. Indeed, they have fallen one against another. Then they said, get up. Let us go back to our own people, our own native land, away from the sword of the oppressor. Let's retreat back to our own borders. There we will be safe, they think. They go into a kind of military isolationism, thinking that they can just retreat to their own borders and be safe. When you're up against demonic principalities, it doesn't work that way. Just look at today. The Iranians developed ballistic missiles, long-range ballistic missiles. They fired 2 of them at Diego Garcia the Anglo-American military base in the middle of the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles away, thousands of miles away. One crashed into the Indian Ocean, the other was shot down. Yet the Iranians have missiles that can reach that far. Paris, Vienna, Berlin, Munich, Brussels, Amsterdam, nearly England, Madrid, Rome, Milan, Athens, they are all in range of Iranian ballistic missiles that the Americans and Israelis are trying to destroy. All in range. And if these were outfitted with nuclear warheads, where would that put Europe? At the mercy of fanatical Islamists who are nuclearly armed. But you see, the countries, not to be political, this is an American war, this is an Israeli war. We don't want anything to do with it. Germany's saying that. Starmer is saying that. Spain is certainly saying that. They themselves think that they can retrench and just worry about their own interests instead of facing the reality of the threat for what it is. Well, take what's happening today and put it on steroids. That is what is going to happen at the close of the age. They will not be able to confront the threat strategically, neither will they be able to retreat from it with isolationism. They're going to be in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, and God is not going to lift a finger to help them because they've turned away from God. The Lord may show mercy to individuals, and he has a plan for Israel, and ultimately he has a plan to save Arabs, but the nations themselves are destroyed. God will look to the Amim, to peoples who are inhabiting a land, for those people who will repent and believe. The gospel will be preached from the sky. It will not be preached the way it is now. The church will not exist. There'll be other things happening, but it will be the prospect of salvation to the Amim, not to the Goyim, not to the nations. They're finished. They can go into war and alliances, but they'll trip over each other. It won't work. Or they can retreat into isolationism. That won't work. The king of Babylon has an agenda from hell. Satan is driving it. Jesus had 3.5 years of public ministry. Satan will demand equal time for the Antichrist, and he will get it. Nothing is going to stop it, ultimately. We have to understand what's happening here in Jeremiah's day to get a hint, a foretaste, an outline of what is going to happen in the future. And in fact, some of these things seem to be taking shape already. It may be the not too distant future, but let us look. Even your mighty ones have become prostrate. They repeatedly stumble. They've fallen over one another. Get up, get up. No, they can't become motivated. They cried there. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is but a big noise. He's let the appointed time pass by. The appointed time has passed by. He's just a big noise. People are going to find out that Pope Leo is just a big noise, that Eric Starmer is a big noise, that Meretz is a big noise, that Biden is a big noise. They're just a big noise. That's all they are. They're all talk. No action. Any action they try is going to fumble and fail. It doesn't matter who the people have rallied to. They're going to find out that their leader was a windbag. the time has passed. Now is the appointed time. Today is the day of salvation. That is true for every unsaved person who hears the gospel. But it's also true for nations. Nations have had seasons. Nations have had their seasons to hear the truth. Some have repented and believed. Others have let the time pass. They just let the time pass. God was willing to show them grace, but they've let the time pass. The time's not coming again, not on a national level. Verse 18, as I live, declares the King, whose name is the Lord of hosts, the real King, the King of kings. Surely one shall come who looks up like Tabor among the mountains, or like Carmel by the sea. It points to two mountains in Galilee, Har Tabor. Har Tabor, where the story of Deborah took place. Har Tabor overlooks the valley of Armageddon from the north. If you've watched our documentary, Why This Time is Different, we point out that Napoleon ascended to Har Tabor, looked down at the valley of Jezreel, below, so-called Valley of Armageddon. It's not a valley. It's a valley, it's not a mount. I'm sorry, it is a mountain, it's not a valley. It's the Valley of Jezreel. And he looks down and says, this is the perfect place for the ultimate military campaign. This is Mount Tabor, Har Tabor. Erroneously, the Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholic Church wrongly teach it was the Mount of Transfiguration. It was not. Mount Hermon was the Mount of Transfiguration, not Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor is what overlooks the Valley of Armageddon to its south, and it overshadows Nazareth on its north. It overshadows Nazareth and the area around Nazareth on one side and looks down on the Valley of Megiddo, the Valley of Jezreel on the south side. That's one mountain. The second is Har Carmel, Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel today towers above the city of Haifa. Part of the city of Haifa and its port are built on the slopes of Mount Carmel. Har Carmel is, of course, where Elijah had his encounter and conflict with the priests of Baal in the days of Ahab and Jezebel. Mount Carmel is like the Rock of Gibraltar. It protrudes upwards out of the sea. The Phoenicians and Canaanites considered it to be a high place for pagan worship, a high place for pagan worship. It was the high place for pagan worship in Galilee. Its contrast with the sea made it seem something monumental. Hence, that is where Elijah confronted the demonic practices of the Canaanite religion that backslidden Israel had gone into under Queen Jezebel and King Ahab. That's where that conflict took place. So you've got the conflict that took place in the book of Judges, chapter 5, on Mount Tabor, and the conflict we see, of course, in Kings with Elijah and the priests of Baal. It points to these two important mountains, not just important geographically, but important historically and important theologically. Okay, points to the two of them. Carmel by the sea. Make your baggage ready for exile, O daughter dwelling in Egypt, for Memphis will become a desolation. The capital city of Egypt will be destroyed. The main city will be destroyed. It will even be burned down and bereft of inhabitants. A big city would be depopulated and totally burned to the ground and destroyed. It goes on. Egypt is a pretty heifer. It looked good, but a horsefly is coming from the north. It is coming. One horsefly can torment a heifer. It can torment a heifer. A horsefly comes from the north. Europe is being tormented by a horsefly. That horsefly that is tormenting Europe, and that horsefly that is tormenting Britain is, of course, Islam. It torments. Before the war, before the conflict, it torments. Also, her mercenaries in her midst are like fattened calves, for even they too have turned back and have fled away together. They did not stand their ground, for the day of their calamity has come upon them, the time of their punishment. There are mercenaries who can be absorbed into a nation's military loyally. Two examples would be the Gurkhas in the Royal British Army. They're very loyal to Britain and to the monarch and so forth for cultural reasons. And the second would be the French Foreign Legion. It is possible to get professional mercenaries and integrate them into your own military. It is possible. But soldiers of fortune are not loyal. Soldiers of fortune will fight for anybody who's going to pay them the most. And when the risk to their own lives and well-being, to the risk to their own interest, becomes too high, they will run away. You can bribe a government. Intelligence agencies have done this. Both the KGB and CIA have done this. You can bribe governments for their political loyalty, but you're not going to win the loyalty of their peoples or their armies. It just doesn't work that way. It just won't work that way. You can't rely on them. You can't rely on them. Soldiers of fortune are out for themselves. They do not take on the identity of the nation that recruits them. This happens. They make alliances and they pay people to be loyal to this one and loyal to that one. These things collapse. They won't stand their ground in the day of calamity. They won't do it. It moves along like a serpent, for they move on like an army and come to her as woodcutters with axes. They move like a serpent, a deceiver. They move on like an army and come to her. Notice they initially come in deception. They come silently until they're ready to strike like a rattlesnake. Then you hear the rattling or the hissing. They've cut down her forest, declares the Lord. Surely it will no more be found, even though they are now more numerous than locusts and are without number. Now that locust is a key word also found in Joel, and it speaks of the Babylonian invasions as well as the demon cohorts of Satan in the book of Revelation, chapter 9. When you see that word locust always associated with the prophecies found in the book of Joel and the book of Revelation. The daughter of Egypt has been put to shame, given over to the power of the people of the north. The Babylonians swept down from the north. Just think of Abraham. He came from Ur of the Chaldees. Then he went up to Harari in what is today Syria, and then he comes south through Lebanon into the land of Israel. It comes from the north. In the Old Testament, the invasions, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Seleucid Greeks, they always came from the north. Attacks come from the north. To this day, Israel has always been worried about attacks coming from Syria and via Lebanon than they have attacks coming from Egypt or Jordan. They've always been more threatened by attacks from the north. There have been attacks from the south, but even in Yom Kippur, the Egyptians never reached Israel itself. They were stopped on the Sinai. However, in the Yom Kippur War, hundreds and hundreds of Soviet-supplied tanks with Soviet military advisors scaled the Golan Heights and threatened Galilee. The north is the problem. Israel has far more problems with Hezbollah in the north than it does with Hamas or the Houthis in the south. Far more. Far more. Trouble comes from the north geographically. Okay. Well, let's look. It's a day of calamity. The Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, says in verse 25, behold, I'm going to punish Ammon of Thebes, also found in the book of Nahum, and Pharaoh and Egypt, along with her gods and her kings, even Pharaoh and those who trust in him. Notice God's judgment on a nation is always a judgment on their gods, a judgment on their gods, which are demonic powers. Other gods are always demon idols. Winston Churchill understood that the true God of the Nazis were the Teutonic war gods. That's what inspired Hitler, the Teutonic war gods. War was made against the German war machine. They worshipped a god of battle. Once Christianity declined in Germany, once the Lutheran Church, most of its senior clergy, aligned itself with, or at least deferred to the Nazi Party, 9 of the 14 Lutheran bishops, the Catholic Church, of course, was always in partnership with the Nazis in Germany. The bishops, the clergy. Hitler came to power through alliances politically with the Centrum, the Catholic Party of Bavaria. The Roman Catholic Church brought Hitler into power in Germany by making a coalition with him. It's called the Centrum, led by Hans von Papen, the Privy Chamberlain of the Pope. That is how Hitler got elected in power. The Catholic Church was always with Hitler, but then Lutheranism, most of it went in with him. Individuals resisted. It was always the Dietrich Bonhoeffer or the Karl Barth, but the mainstream religious establishment of the Lutheran Church went with Hitler. Hitler's real religion was the Teutonic war gods. That's what he looked to. He identified with the Huns, who were not even really Germanic, but they were staged in Germany for their attacks elsewhere. This is what he looked to. The war gods. God's judgment will always begin with the gods nations worship, with the false gods nations worship. With the Islamic invasions, they destroyed the idolatry of Roman Catholic churches. The things like this. When God makes war on Islam, he destroys, he attacks their religion. He attacks their religion. That is what happens. They believe Allah is going to give them victory in the jihad. Well, after 7 or 8 jihads, millions and millions and millions of Arab Muslims can't defeat a handful of Jews. You understand, they're fighting for the credibility and honor of their religion. They keep losing. To them, to the Muslim mind, it is a defeat for Islam, a defeat for Islam. The Jews believed in a corrupted Judaism, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, not taking into account that the glory of the Lord departed, a kavod. Yet they trusted in their religion, and the temple was destroyed in 585 BC and again in 70 AD CE. That's what happened. God's judgment will always come on the idols, on the idols. False religion itself, the institution, becomes an idol, becomes an idol. When God judges a nation, the judgment begins with their false beliefs. When the United States and its allies defeated Japan, it defeated Shintoism and the emperor worship that went with it, the defeat of Shintoism. The defeat of the gods comes first. The destruction of their religion comes first. Then comes the rest of it. Let's look. What do we see? Don't be dismayed. He's going to do this. I'll give them over to the power of those who are seeking their lives. If he is with their gods, then their kings, that is their governments, even Pharaoh and those who trust in him. The world is Satan's kingdom. People who trust in the world are trusting in the God of this world. Their trust is actually in the God of this world. Let's continue. Verse 26, it shall be given them over to the power of those who are seeking their lives, even the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and into the hand of his officers. Afterwards, however, it will be inhabited as in the days of old, declares the Lord. Oh boy. Notice that God says there will be a reestablishment following the destruction. But now he becomes ethnocentric. Now he speaks to his own people, Israel, represented by Jacob. But as for you, O Jacob, my servant, do not fear, nor be dismayed, O Israel. God always draws a distinction between Jacob and Israel. Israel is Jacob after Jacob has wrestled with the Lord and his name has been changed. Jacob is simply ethnic national Israel. Israel is Jacob after Jacob was renamed when he wrestled with the angel of the Lord at Peniel, the brook of Jabbok. One corresponds to the old creation, the other to the new. One has a parallel to the old covenant, the other to the new. Notice God's promises are both for Jacob and Israel. For see, I'm going to save you from afar, and your descendants from the land of the captivity. Jacob shall return and be undisturbed, and secure with no one making him tremble. The Lord says he will regather the Jews from their captivity. Remember, Isaiah 11:11 says this would happen only twice. The first time was after the Babylonian captivity, and the second time is now. God regathers the Jews to their nation. O Jacob, my servant, do not fear, declares the Lord. I'm with you. For I shall make a full end of the nations where I've driven you. All these nations where you see the anti-Semitism growing and Jews being persecuted, yet I shall not make a full end of you, but I shall correct you properly and by no means leave you unpunished or unjudged. God uses anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. He does not cause it, but he allows it. And he does it for two reasons. One is to encourage Zionism, Aliyah, to drive the Jews back to their homeland. They no longer feel secure in France. They're leaving. At one time, the Jews felt secure in Persia under the Shah. In Iran, the Jews felt quite secure. Since 1979, they've not felt secure. Anti-Semitism is growing in Australia. It's even growing in the United States, certainly Canada. And the governments of these countries are increasingly anti-Israel. The Jews of South Africa felt very secure in South Africa at one time. They no longer do. They want to get out of there. Where are they going to go? Some may make it to America or Britain, but the others will go to Israel. But now Jews are actually leaving Britain and some leaving America because of the growth of anti-Semitism. God allows this in order to create an impetus for the regathering of the people to the land. The second is that it is his judgment on them. They have not kept the Torah and cannot keep it with no temple unless they turn to the Messiah who kept the law for them. Their rejection of Yeshua is the reason for the growth of anti-Semitism. That has always been true, but it reaches a pinnacle at the close of the age. We speak of the prophecies of Leviticus chapter 26 and Deuteronomy chapter 28. Look at Deuteronomy 18, please. Verse 18, Deuteronomy 18:18. I will raise up a prophet from among you, their countrymen like you. In other words, a prophet like Moses who will give a covenant. I'll put my words in his mouth, and I shall speak to them all I command him. Now, the rabbis and the rabbinic commentaries admit this is about the Messiah. And it shall come about that whoever will not listen to my words, which he shall speak in my name, I myself will require it of him. Rejection of the Messiah. God will require it of his people, Israel, and the Jews. That is the reason for the growth of Jew hatred we see even today. O Jacob, my servant, don't fear. I'm with you. I'll not make a full end of you. They're never going to wipe you out. I won't let that happen. I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you'll always be here. But I'll correct you properly. Oh boy. The Jews are a people under the curse of the law. The unsaved Jews are under the curse of the Torah. Now, so is all of mankind under the curse of God's law in the basic sense of the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. But the Jews are the microcosm of the human condition. And because they have the most revelation of God's law and the most election as the people through whom the law would be given, where much is given, much is expected. Their history reflects this. God is allowing the Jew hatred to take place in order to drive them back to their land from the nations to where they're scattered, and in judgment for rejecting the Messiah. Because it is when they are back in their land in mass that they will look upon him who they have pierced and mourn for him as one mourns for an only son. The Jews are being driven back to their land where they will recognize the Messiah and say, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai." That is our study in Jeremiah chapter 46. Remember, it has a meaning for its own time. It has an ongoing dynamic meaning historically, and it foreshadows events of the close of the age. We have to understand these prophecies as pertinent for all three time frames. Lord willing, we will continue next week.
Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan to India to Africa and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.